Okay. All right. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Hartford Selectboard on Tuesday, February 18th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Our first item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would anyone like to lead us?
I'd be happy to.
Great.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks, Manny.
Thank you for the honor.
All right, we're going to close this portion of the select board meeting and reopen this full liquor control board. We're here to consider a new application for Rachel Burge and Matthew Burge doing business as Honeychild. A license of the first and third class. It's either Matthew or Rachel. Anyone on Zoom?
I don't believe so.
All right, well, they're not here. We're not going to act on it. We don't do that on new applications. So we will table it until we hear from them. We do have a meeting next Tuesday, so we can maybe get in touch with them. So I'm going to go ahead and close this portion of the local liquor control board and reopen as the Hartford Select Board. Local Cannabis Control Board, nothing. Order of agenda, everyone's got it. I don't think there are any changes. So we'll start with public comment. We'll start with people in the room and then hear from people on Zoom. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. If there's an item you want to discuss that actually has its own agenda item on the agenda, we'd ask you to wait until that point to speak. But otherwise, I'll open up the floor if there's anyone in the room. Don't see anyone in the room. Anyone on Zoom?
No hands up at the moment.
Okay, well, I will go ahead and end public comments. Just want to check. Excuse me, sir, are you here with the liquor license?
He's here with Bugbee Senior Center.
Oh, okay. Just making sure. All right, so select board comments and announcements. Kim, anything?
I was trying to find the website is called, but just that there are upcoming town meeting cycle events. February 24th, Monday at 7 o'clock is candidate and budget night at the Hartford High School auditorium. We say that February 27th, Thursday, February 27th at 1:30. There's another candidate forum at the Bugbee Senior Center. This is for select board and school board and town moderator and library trustee candidates. And then town meeting day is March 1st at the high school, 10 o'clock, the high school gym. And then voting day, March 4th, Tuesday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Hartford High School gym. And absentee ballots can be picked up now at the town clerk's office. I was informed today that they recommend if you're completed an absentee ballot that at this point you drop it off at the town clerk's office or in the drop box outside the town hall. They felt like it was maybe too close to trust the USPS at this point to mail it back. And the town clerk's office will close at 3 p.m.
Usually it's midday the day before.
On the 3rd. But they did say you could drop ballots in the ballot box outside town hall until 5 p.m. on Monday, March 3rd.
Great, thanks, Kim. Brandon, anything?
That about covers it. Thank you, Kim.
Okay, Mary, any?
I'm sure everybody has heard the word, seen it in the newspaper, but I just want to compliment our new police chief, Kelly. So I'm very happy for her, and I'm sure her little girl is really proud of her mom.
Great. Thanks, Mary. Ida, any comment?
I don't have any comments, just echoing Kim's announcements, and I hope folks can come out to learn about the candidates and to vote on March 4th.
Great, thanks, Ida. Lanny, any comment?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to attend the Hartford Police Department Heart Start meeting that they had. The first one they had up to the public safety building. John made it as well. Pretty informative as far as what the problems that we're facing in the town are. It's a base to gather data, and they need a place to start. It was interesting seeing the trends that have happened in law enforcement and in the actual number of calls that they've had over the years. very excited to see where this goes. And I'm not sure how our new chief will approach this, but we'll move forward and see if we can have better understanding of some of the problems associated with policing in the town of Hartford. There were quite a number of agencies there, and a lot came out of that for them, I believe, as well. So
Great, thanks, Lynn.
that's about it.
Great. I don't have any comments, so we'll move on to appointments. Our first appointment is a new appointment. That's the appointment of Jasmine Hawkins to the Hartford Committee on Racial Equity and Inclusion for a 2-year term, beginning April 18th, 2025, and ending April 17th, 2027. Jasmine is here.
Jasmine is on Zoom.
Jasmine is on Zoom. Then Jasmine, if you'd like to just introduce yourself and tell us about why you were interested in this position, and there may be some questions from the select board.
Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes.
I don't know if you all see me. It looks like my video's not on. So I am Jasmine Hawkins. I moved in the Hartford community. Well, I moved up from Atlanta, Georgia, into Hartford, Vermont, July of 22. I wanted to be involved in my community for some time, but it wasn't until working as a poll worker during this past election, this past November election, that I was in touch with some other members of the select board who were telling me organizations and committees that were available and how I can contribute. So I reached out to a few, and I found that HCOREI was suitable. I attended a few meetings and wanted to get involved there. I was part of activities at my current employment, which is at the VA Department of Veterans Affairs, doing a few things, and realized that I wanted to expand into the community that are focused on social justice activities, among other activities. So those are part of my interest of why I wanted to join the committee.
Great. Any questions from the board for Jasmine? Alana?
Yeah, Jasmine, thank you very much for applying for this. Couple of questions I guess I have. Obviously, you've done some study in terms of what this board has been about, and you say you've been to a couple of meetings, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So what do you see as one of the biggest things that HCOREI has accomplished for the town of Hartford? And what is something that you believe still needs to be accomplished?
So what I've seen is they have been a great contributor to putting on the Juneteenth. That seems to have been a big event to show some presence, and for the members of the community, of the committee, members of the community to see that this committee exists and that the efforts are to help the town of Hartford become more inclusive. But I feel like it's been limited. There are opportunities for better communication, for folks to, so when I moved into the area, I wasn't aware that this committee exists and what the efforts, all of the efforts that they put forth. And I feel like setting up some sort of communication, outward communication to the town would be useful. Maybe even getting some feedback from from the town. I know I was looking at town of Hartford, so not specific to HCOREI. There was a wow, the word is slipping me. Like an open forum for I'm sorry. I am I'm
Take your time.
losing
Are you,
all of my words
are you
now.
thinking? Hi, Jasmine, this is Ida. I just want to, are you thinking maybe one of the listening sessions that we had?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's exactly what I wanted to mention. There have been listening sessions in the past, and I wanted to see if we can start that back up. Maybe it can be specific to HCOREI, but as a whole, for the town, that would be nice to get some feedback from the town of what exactly they would be interested in seeing going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Jasmine? Not, I'll take a motion.
Chair.
Kim?
Excuse me. I move that the select board appoint Jasmine Hawkins to the Hartford Committee on Racial Equity and Inclusion for a 2-year term beginning February 18, 2025 and ending February 17, 2027, even though it says April.
Oh, yep. Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the
There's a
motion.
second from Mary. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Jasmine, so much for applying, and just to the board. Jasmine and I are colleagues at the VA, and it's a pleasure to work with her in that capacity. And I'm really excited that she has, expressed interest in involvement in our local government. So thank you, Jasmine, for applying and for donating your time.
Mary?
I'm the liaison and a voting member of HCOREI, and Jasmine's been attending for a while now, and she actually even stepped up and offered to do some footwork on our newest project. So I'm very impressed with Jasmine.
Good. Laney?
Yeah, Jasmine, I want to apologize. My question was not meant to be a stump you question in any way or to put you on guard. So my apologies if it did so. So.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks, Jasmine.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got a trio of appointments to the zoning board. These are all reappointments. The first is to consider the reappointment of Christopher Lowe to the zoning board of adjustment for a 3-year term beginning February 18th, 25 and ending February 17th, 28. Is there any discussion? Kim?
John, did you give any thought to my recommendation about how we post vacancies?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I did pass on to Lana your concern about these particular appointments. And these particular appointments are in front of you because we're not having, beyond the meeting on February 25th, we're not having another opportunity to make appointments that are time sensitive until March 18th for a regular meeting. And that's why they're on tonight's agenda.
Yeah, and I understand it's for context. We've been looking at the vacancy postings, and so in all fairness, they were posted correctly. There's no vacancies for February. And these 3 vacancies are in March, which do appear on the on the town website and the listserv posts, etc. But basically, it just I'm making a suggestion going forward that the town manager or staff can decide whether, or the board can decide whether to direct them or not. But I think it might be helpful to just list specifically zoning board of adjustment 2-year term expires March 7th, 2025. And I think it would be a little bit of work to establish it, but then to keep it updated, I think would be very minimal work. And it would just make it really clear and explicit what committees are having vacancies on what dates. So I don't think we should hold up these.
I've got no objection to that approach. I just haven't.
Mhm.
John, is it Lana who actually does the updating of what vacancies come?
Lana.
Okay. I don't know, maybe she has a lot. I was wondering, I was just thinking, processing in my head, maybe either as a backup or something that the vice chair of the commissions or boards could periodically really keep track of that. So, I mean, it just seems like we do have a little bit of an issue sometimes with knowing when the vacancies are coming due, and we get pretty close to it. I was just thinking about the commissions, the committees I'm on, and I'm going, okay, you know, we have a chair, a vice chair, and a clerk. Maybe the vice chair could be tasked with keeping track of that. or
Sort of a
something,
committee
because-
by committee vigilance about
Right,
their
right,
vacancies and
right. I don't
being
know,
in
it's just
touch
a-
with Lana. Or whoever.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure Lana wouldn't mind the help.
Yeah.
Sure.
May?
These two particular committees, well, we're talking about zoning here, but zoning and planning both carry a significant amount of weight in the town of Hartford and quite a bit of authority in terms of where we're building out for Hartford. And it's concerning to me that we have we don't have the interest from the community to apply for these positions. And I'm not sure how we can drive more interest in that. It cripples a community when you don't have differing ideas to add to the discussion. And I didn't know if there's been other people that applied for this, John, or if it's just these people that have applied because they've been up for reinstatement on that.
Certainly, if there were multiple applications, you'd see them.
I don't know how we can do better at getting the announcement out there that these are positions that need to be filled or that they're expiring. And it's great to see these people stepping up and doing the job. I don't want that to be taken the wrong way. It just would be nice to know if there's a way to, I guess, get more interest in this community planning and development and zoning.
Certainly can raise it with our communications person, who's one of whose functions is to do public outreach and communication.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I mean, this brings me up another idea that Lanny, you had suggested originally, and then I talked about it in John, but to put in some information in a mailer that goes out with the tax bills in July.
Yeah.
So I think we could possibly include this if I know John did some check with town staff and it wouldn't be that much extra work or printing to have, you know, a flyer basically of information about the town, both like social service resources that people might not be aware of. And then we could even just have a list of all the committees and then say, this is where you go if you want to learn about vacancies. And if we had that easily accessible, like Kim was suggesting, that would be great. Just so there's more awareness about all the committees in general. That's mailed directly to people's homes.
Just like I say, just these two committees, zoning and planning, just carry so much within our town. And it's important that we get more people involved. I thoroughly support that. Thank you.
Further discussion, or I'll take a motion on the first of these. Mary?
I move that we accept Christopher Lowe to the Zoning Board of Adjustment for a 3-year term, beginning February 18th, 2025 and ending February 17th, 2028.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
A second from Kim. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Our next reappointment is for Steve Lagasse to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, 3-year term, February 18th, 2025 and February 17th, 2028. Any discussion on this?
Are any of these people online by chance?
Generally speaking, it's not an obligation, but I don't know.
I understand.
I don't know the
didn't ask
answer.
that. I just asked if they were online.
I don't, there's a limit. If anyone of the zoning board reappointments is online and would like to speak, could you raise your hand? There's Linda and Steve, but I don't know if that's. None of those names are.
Yeah, I just, if somebody is available, I just welcome the opportunity to have them speak. That's all.
Good.
Sorry, we're not in the middle of a motion. You're asking for a motion for the next one.
Well, whether there's discussion.
Discussion. We're still in discussion right now.
Just because I'm only now noticing that all 3 of these are 3-year terms. So are there some that are 2-year? Like basically the fact that how many zoning board members are there? 5?
believe it's 5, yeah.
So anyway, in fact, they're all coming up at the same time.
Yeah, it did seem like an anomaly to me too, a strange bit of timing. Maybe Lana at home can explain a little bit about the timing of these terms.
Is Lana watching?
Feel free to chime in if you want, Lana. She's definitely on.
I have no reason, whenever the committee was started, they're all 3-year terms. So my assumption is they were all appointed at the same time. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lana. Discussion or a motion?
I thought we already had a motion.
No, we didn't. Not for the
No.
second. We're
No.
doing
Okay.
for Steve Lagasse.
Okay, man.
I move that we reappoint Steve Lagasse to the Zoning Board of Adjustment for a 3-year term beginning February 18th, 2025 and ending February 17th, 2028.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Kim. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Our final reappointment, Alice Molesky to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, 3-year term, February 18th, 2025, ending February 17th, 2028. Any discussion on this one? I'll take a motion.
Make a,
Yes,
go ahead.
I move that we reappoint Alice Molesky to the Zoning Board of Adjustment for a 3-year term beginning February 18th, 2025 and ending February 17th, 2028.
Motion.
Second.
We have a second from Lanny. Any discussion? Yeah, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. So that takes us through appointments. We'll turn now to John for the town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't belabor the town meeting cycle, which both Kim and Ida have mentioned. So hope everybody comes out to all these events and participates in their local democracy. I'd like to also echo Mary's comments, congratulating Connie Kelly. We're very pleased she's accepted a promotion to serve as our next police chief. She'll be sworn in this room on Monday, March 3rd at 9 a.m. We thank Connie for her 26 years of service to the police department so far and wish her many more years of success as chief. A public welcoming ceremony will be scheduled soon with details on venue, date, and time to be announced. As did Lanny, I attended the February 11th Hart Stat meeting hosted by the Outreach Division of the HPD, and I also found it very exciting to see so many social service agencies there to want to work with police on the many calls that the police get, which are not truly criminal in nature. And we look at those 3 big, sometimes overlapping issue areas of homelessness, opioid abuse, and mental illness as some of the examples of non-crime related calls that come in that the police will now be hopefully more able to enlist and solicit the help of social service providers so that we can deal with non-police matters in a non-escalatory police approach. So the next meeting of this group will take place on March 11th at 8 o'clock in the morning. In the April and/or May timeframe, the HPD's Outreach Division, now fully staffed with its lieutenant commander and several civilian members, as I just mentioned, civilians, people who focus on things like substance abuse and mental illness, will roll out their community coalition process based on Chief Sheldon's Rutland Vision process, but tailored to local issues and circumstances. So let's stay tuned for more information on that important step forward. A few SIGACs I'd like to highlight, if you won't mind.
Sure.
I'm sure the clerk would appreciate me issuing a call to all dog owners to remind you that all dogs 6 months and older must be licensed by April 1st per Vermont law. Parking meters that are going to be installed have arrived, and there'll be continued work between the police department and the planning office on installation and enforcement that'll come soon thereafter. Public Works is pleased to announce that they've hired Kelsey Holmes as their administrative assistant with an anticipated start date of next Monday. There was some flooding of the main pump room at the White River Junction pollution abatement plant or wastewater treatment plant due to a failure of a valve for in-house water process system expansion tank. Approximately 12,000 gallons of water flooded into the room and submerged some pumps and electrical components. The plant is operational and the damages are still being assessed. The communications and media specialist has been busy again, reporting on disseminating news of the new police chief hiring, and attending the first Hartstat meeting and posting it on social media. The fire department notes that they've been offered access for training at the 25,000 Gifts property by the Haven, which is the current owner. And this training will be ongoing until the building is demolished. Crews are taking the opportunity to practice hands-on drills at the property, and they appreciate this offer from the Haven. Thank you to the Haven. And from the community nurse and the fire chief, they note that it's becoming clear that not only will the community nurse be focusing on helping aging people age in place at their homes and navigate the health system, but she'll also be a helpful ally to connecting vulnerable residents under the age of 50 to appropriate resources, given that she is in attendance at various multidisciplinary meetings. So thank you very much.
Questions for John? Okay.
John, one of the things that I saw within your report is that the Clerical Workers Union initial meeting.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I know has been discussed among the select board in the past is the board's participation in union contracts. We have been left out of the process of union contracts in the past. And I would really love to see a member of the board participate in this meeting. It seems like in the past we have received perhaps updates, but then we had a meeting, we've been given a contract, and we've been told sign this negotiation we've had. And we, as the members of this board, represent the citizens of the town of Hartford, not you or Paul Anelti, Scott Hausler, or Brian Monaghan. We are the ones that represent the community. And as such, I believe that the select board needs to have more voice or presence in union negotiations and contracts. And this is a perfect opportunity to get involved with that for this Clerical Workers Union. I know my other colleagues on the board have spoken of this in the past. I know Kim has spoken about it in the past, to have more involvement with that. And I would really like to see a union, a select board representative during this process be part of the meetings.
It's a very interesting thought. In Pittsford, where I was town manager, I made it a practice to have a select board member or even two on our team to negotiate contracts for the very reasons you mentioned, so that you don't get something at the 11th hour saying yes or no, but rather you participated, you know what the issues are, and you can help communicate those to your brethren on the board. So I'm not opposed to the idea, but I do have others who I probably should run it up the flagpole with and get back to you if that's acceptable, just to see if they have any countervailing arguments about why that might not be a good idea. But I have thought it as a good idea, and I'm open to it.
I understand that staff works for you.
Yeah.
And they report to you.
Mm-hmm.
However, we are the ones that are responsible for the budgetary requirements that are involved with union contracts.
Yep.
And therefore, I believe the select board needs to have a presence, or would be almost mandatory for the presence. And I'd like to get some input from my fellow board members. in regards to that.
Well, I'd certainly like to hear what, John, after you talk to the other players, what their thoughts are, and then if, everyone thinks it's a good idea to have a member of the select board present, or maybe two, then I think that's something we can decide which members are interested and, you know, have them attend if they'd like. I think that's perfectly acceptable. When's the meeting again?
The first meeting is basically just an introductory session to set logistics for future meetings.
Yeah.
So that I think will take place next week sometime. I think later in the week, like the
later next week.
27th or 28th,
If you
something
could
along those lines.
Find out the thoughts of the attorney
Yes.
especially, and let
Yeah.
us know, and then if it's like, yeah, it'd be great, maybe have two board members who want to attend those meetings, we can decide amongst ourselves who the two members are.
Yeah.
Anyone, does that work for people?
I'm fine with that. Kim, I'd really love to hear your comments, because I know you've offered comments about it in the past as well.
I'm supportive of it.
Is everyone okay with that course of action by John? He'll check in and get back to us. And then, you know, we'll figure out who's got interest, and decide who we want
I mean,
to send.
and I think, I guess the other point I would make, if I may, Chair, Mr.
Go
Chair, is that would be applicable to all of the union negotiations that
Right.
take place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think
The
it would be
devil-
in practice going forward.
The devil will really be in the details of who's interested
Yeah.
and who the board as a whole wants to represent
And it may
it
be
on
different
the
board
team.
members for different.
And of course, the
contract
election day is coming and
negotiations.
you're gonna
Yeah.
have maybe as many as 3 or 4 new members.
I just know that we've been left out. It seems like we've been left out of the discussion in the past. And then at the end result, we've been said, here, sorry. And I think it's a poor practice to do that. Because like I said, we are responsible for the citizens, to the citizens.
Yep.
To the citizens, and you're responsible to us. So, all right, thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Other questions for John on the town manager's reports? Okay, thanks, John.
Sure,
As usual, great job. All
appreciate it.
right, our first item tonight in board motions, reports, ordinances, a update from the Conservation Commission. And we have someone here. If you'd like to identify yourself, I think there's a PowerPoint. I don't know if we can get that up onto the screen.
Do you want me to do from the agenda?
If you could, yeah.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I didn't know that was gonna be asked. I'm happy to.
I think it would be helpful because they put together quite a nice slide deck for us.
Yeah.
If you want to just identify yourself, and then we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks. Well, I'm Katie Mann and I am the current chair of the Conservation Commission. Yes, I was looking over what we did last year. I wasn't totally sure what you would want to know about, so I looked back at last year and then looked at what we're gonna do this year. And the theme that really came together is education and connection to Hartford. Really connection to Hartford through education partnerships. We had events every month of the year last year. Most of them were in the Hartford Town Forest. If you want to go forward, we'll. Yeah, actually. So I'm the chair right now. Mike Harris, Michael is our vice chair, and we're really co-chairing. And then our treasurer is Chris Feetham, and we have a full commission right now, which is great. And we had one vacancy last year when our former chair stepped down, and that was filled by October. And we have really qualified folks right now who are really excited to help out and be involved. So we're well chaired right now, and with volunteers, and then we are really active. So we've been then we can keep going. So it's, the first part is really what we've been doing in Hartford. So in the Hartford Town Forest, and mainly it's been educational walks. So we've had walks in the winter, which are more like footprints in the snow and what's out there. Birding walks. We have we've had a couple led by naturalist Ted Levin, who is a member, and then we've partnered with some other local organizations like the Vermont Center for Eco Studies for our salamander walk and our vernal pool walk in April. Can keep going down. One thing that started up last year, and we have she continued it every month. So our new member as of last year, Skylar Cloud has been doing outreach with families. And so every second Saturday of every month, we started out at 10 to 1 and now it's 1 to 2. She takes out anybody who wants to come, and it's a very safe environment for families to join and learn about the Hartford Town Forest, about the natural area, and also join with other like-minded families. And so it kind of ebbs and flows as the seasons go. And there's a picture of Steve Fastu from Vermont Center for Eco Studies, and we partnered with the Hartford Salamander team for the Vernal Pool Walk. You want to keep going there? Yeah. Just lots of photos of our walks. We partnered with the Quechee and Wilder Libraries to do story walks, and we'll probably do that again. They had a story out in July and August, and Sky focused one of her monthly walks on doing that with the families that showed up, but anyone can just do a self-guided walk. And we are continuing walks and education about sustainable forestry. Anyone who's interested, local landowners or just residents of any kind. And we do have a new county forester who just started last month. And I'm hoping that he and I can take a walk out there. So we'll report back to you because he's taken over from AJ Follinsby, and we'll have that transition so he can help us with our forest management plan. We're continuing our partnership with the Upper Valley Mountain Biking Association. We have an MOU with them. They've been helping us out with our trail work days, and the Hartford area
Career and Technology
Center. Thank you. They have a new natural resource instructor who we have started communicating with, and we're figuring out, we had that transition and the new forester, so we're kind of figuring out how we all work together again. But before that transition all happened, last year, the students helped clean up after the logging event. They were doing some takedown of small trees that weren't taken down by the forester, the loggers, and they also were doing taking down some of the stumps. We also asked them to leave some of the taller stumps for habitat for different wildlife that would use it, like 6 to 8 foot tall. They're not really snags, they're stumps, but they will eventually become snags. And so then around Hartford, we are involved in the Green Up Day annually, and we'll do that again this year. And that one cut. Sorry. And that one's going to be on May 3rd this year. And okay, this one I'm excited about. So last year we launched this networking opportunity where we partnered with 10 other local organizations and committees, and each one gave a 5-minute basically plug about what they do and projects around Hartford and how residents can get involved. And then we mingled with them. So they had tables and we could mix, and there were over 40 people who showed up, over 50 people that showed up. And we're going to have another one, the second annual, on March 7th. So in 2 weeks. And that will also be at the Bugbee Center again this year. And it's most of the same organizations that will be returning. And we're excited to do it again. And Jam will be, Junction Arts and Media will be recording it, and the Upper Valley Co-op has agreed to provide refreshments. So it is a real local conglomeration of organizations and people. We also are partnering with the White River School to augment the garden that's behind the school and put more pollinator species in the eastern hillside of it as you first come up. And that's also where parents and guardians wait for their kids while they're picking them up as if they drive. So it's visible to community members, and we had a few work days out there. We also grew some of the plants from seed, and it's just a process. We're cold stratifying some, and we'll put them there. So so we're doing that at the White River School. And we started partnering with the White River the White River Partnership to do the source to sea cleanup. So every September, when the rivers are pretty low, there's a garbage cleanup. It's much like Green Up Day, but it's focused on the rivers. And so we've adopted a couple sites each year and gone out and picked up trash along with them. And I think, so then we have a huge slate of activities for 2025. Again, everything, there's at least one thing, if not multiple activities every month. And so this is a calendar. Some of them are to be determined. We're revamping the website and we'll have the events on there. And then we're also, because I feel like I actually didn't say everything that we're doing, but we're also starting a recognition of residents who are dedicated to conservation in some sense. And so we're some of our members are putting together basically an award that we will be calling for nominations and writing that up and then giving somebody an award, I think annually. All the details will be coming up, but that's something that we're working on in 2025. We are also working with landowners to put out kestrel boxes. So, and once we get kestrel boxes out on like grassland, farmland areas, we will be working with bins to do data collection with them. So we have a few out, and we're still looking for a couple more. I think that's.
Thanks, Katie. Questions
Yeah.
for Katie? Elaine?
Katie, great to see what you guys are doing. Very impressive to see all the work and activities you guys have going on. One thing that stood out to me when I was going through this, though, and it's not a takeaway from your presentation at all, is the continued cleanup of logged areas within the town forest. When I spoke about this in the past during one of these meetings in regards to what I would call the leftovers that were left over after logging operations. And it seems, I don't know if we're not doing a good enough job with talking with our loggers that are going in there to make sure that we're getting proper cleanup done on the logged areas or not. But there were a lot of what I would consider tree falls that were unusable wood, and there were some rather large logs that were left up there as well. And
yeah, so that was actually really intentional. So we worked with the logger, we worked with the forester, and we worked with the logger very closely. So we wanted to leave as much wood on the ground as possible. So we worked with the logging company to see what would be manageable for them as far as what would be worth their time and effort to take out. And anything else we wanted left on the ground. And actually they cleaned it up more than what we wanted it to be. We actually wanted it to be messier because messy is good. And so actually it's a change of perception. So what should a log job look like, right? So should it have nothing on the ground? That actually leaves no carbon to decompose and then to augment the soil. So what we wanted was all the slash. We wanted the tops of the trees. We wanted the limbs to be left, and so they can decompose and they can actually put the carbon and also the minerals and everything else is going to be decomposing into the soil. And that's really important. It's also really important because we have quite a large deer population. So we also wanted some kind of deterrent for the deer so that they wouldn't just like take all of our little seedlings. The whole reason for, one of the main reasons for the logging project was so that we would have a diverse understory growing up. It was pretty monoculture, and we had a lot of beech that were diseased, and we wanted to let light in, and we wanted seeds to be regenerating, and we wanted it to be diverse so that when as our climate is changing, we want it to be able to adapt to what's going to come in. So all of that's left is actually really intentional. We work with the logging company, we work with the forester, we also work with the Hartford Area Career Technology Center to leave what is there now. And so it is, and that's what we've been having these walks to educate landowners that it doesn't have to be like a completely bare understory, because that actually doesn't give the forest back what it needs after a logging job is done.
that would be something that would be really worthwhile to present when we have plans to do logging in areas of the town forest.
We did.
But I understand, what I'm saying is that what's going to be left up there, though. I don't believe that it was stated what would be left
It
of
was
this
really
nature.
hard to show what was gonna be left, but we did. So actually, this is a really good example. And this is also what we wanna do. We wanna say, look, this is what you can do on your land. Like if there are landowners who are going through their forest management plan and they are also gonna do logging on their property, which they have to do, and say, look, this is a method that we would actually support, and this is what we advocate for, and this is what it's gonna look like, and it's different than other logging jobs that folks that may have experience.
And that's the disconnect, I think, that a lot of people had. And
And
that's why the educational piece, as far as this is good for the forest management of what we're going to do, leaving this stuff in there. So
yeah,
that'll
and
be
we do, and
worthwhile.
our forester, the previous forester, AJ Bonsby, did a number of YouTube videos to explain these, and we also have the QR codes around the forest for people to, and also like, hey, what's signs that say, hey, this is vlogged, what's going on here? So we do have some temporary signage in the forest right now.
Thank you.
And we can put that on our website.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Mary?
Yeah, and one of the things that they've been doing, it's just amazing how much work they're doing. And Katie's gotten tubes to protect some of the seedlings as well, because of course the deer will browse on it. So, I mean, they've been working on this a long time. And it was several years ago when the logging was going on, there was a lot of concern. There has been a change in people's feelings about doing a lot of logging. So they've been dealing with that extremely well, I think.
That's the point. The part that I think was missing is that disconnect between what logging has been in the past and what logging is now. So
Just to be fair, like I did understand that was the expectation, because I remember when this was first coming before us and people had those concerns, and watching videos about old growth forests and understanding like what that was. So anyway, I don't think there's a disconnect. I think it is, the information is there, especially like if you've gone on any of the forest walks, like, anyway, I'm so impressed with the groups.
as I said, they're doing a great job. I just had that.
And we'll
That
continue
question
to do
about
our
that.
walks, and so that's part of the introduction that we will do with the new forester and how we can continue those on, because it's going to be changing, and so as we go through time, it will keep looking different, and we'll have.
My comment is in no way a negative comment. It's just an educational piece that is.
Yeah.
Because I was.
Well,
interested in
hopefully
that.
you can come to one of our walks.
Yes, I will do that.
Other questions for Katie? All right, thanks very much, Katie.
Yeah,
Very
thanks, Katie.
informative, appreciate it. Okay, our next item is the first in what will likely be a number of meetings. We're gonna get an overview of the Bugbee Senior Center Architectural Feasibility Study. Like I said, this is our first look at this. There'll be lots of future meetings, lots of steps in the process, but this is the first one. So we're gonna get an overview of the study and turn it over to appropriate folks.
Would you be more comfortable over there, or are you fine?
Oh, this is fine.
Okay.
Is it okay here?
Yeah.
Do you want anything shared on the screen for your presentation?
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great, just so people can follow along. There's quite a bit of information, and I'm Doug Sensala with Studio Nexus Architects. We're located right in downtown White River Junction on the second floor of the Cartoon Building, which was the former post office. And just to give you a brief overview of the presentation this evening, first I'd like to mention the project team members, and then provide a brief history of the Bugbee building, and then provide a summary of the feasibility study and process, and then a review of the design options that were developed as part of the study. First, the project team members. The evaluations and planning for this feasibility study were done with a team effort and result of collaboration with the following partners. First of all, the town of Hartford, and we were kind of straddled between the interim town manager and then John. So we had a little, it took longer than we anticipated just because of that, because the town was in between. And then the Bugbee Senior Center / White River Council on Aging, and they're the current tenant of the building. And we have the executive director here tonight, Mark. And I'm with Studio Nexus Architects and Planners, and I'm a principal in the firm. And we provide the overall design and team guidance and general building accessibility and code review. And then we had Engineering Services of Vermont, who are engineers that provide heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, electrical and plumbing analysis and design. And then Waite Engineering and Design did structural and civil review and analysis. And then on the call, we have Doug Gallo from Lifespan Design Studio, who is he specializes in senior and adult community center planning and architectural design. And he was really involved in option D, which we'll see later on when we get to the options. The second part of this presentation is a brief history of the Bugbee building. I think this provides a little bit of context about how select boards and towns work and how this process may go or may not go, but here it goes. And Mark provided this to me a while ago when we first started the process. And the senior center is a town-owned building that was purpose-built as a senior center in 1980. And the White River Council on Aging is a nonprofit tenant that provides senior programming within the Bugbee Senior Center building. And the building was named after T. Dwight Bugbee, and he passed away in 1954. So if you do a little math about when he passed away and when that got built, you'll see there was a lot of space in between there. And the building was, quote, a significantly large sum of money that was bequeathed to the town with the provision that it be used specifically to construct a public building that would bear and therefore perpetuate his name. And then after many years of debate, and we think this was likely in the late 1960s, a committee was formed by town officials to evaluate and determine what was needed most. And what followed was, and this is another quote, almost a decade of ideas, indecision, and frustration. And finally, on Tuesday, October 10th, 1978, the select board unanimously adopted the recommendation of the Bugbee Committee to proceed with the development of a senior center as a building most needed by the town, and the expenditure was approved by the voters. And then Tuesday, April 15th, 1980, the Hartford Selectboard awarded the contract to construct the Bugbee Senior Center to Trumbull Nelson Construction, who still is around today, and they retained Fleck and Lewis, who was also around. They were the architects, and they were both based in Hanover at the time. And the architects described their plans as having, quote, the flavor and character of both a civic building and a facility to serve the elderly, with a social hall, a dining area with a kitchen, meeting rooms, a library, a billiard room. Most of it sounds familiar except for that part. And offices for the White River Council on Aging. The building was expanded shortly after it was built. And it was within a few years of the construction, and that housed a library and an exercise room with a basement below them. The builder room is now a conference room, and the former library is an activity space. And it's really similar to that same layout today. So it hasn't really changed a lot since its inception. So it's in dire need of like an overhaul. So this is part 3 of our process, was the summary of the feasibility study, just so you get a little bit of an idea of what we did. I won't go through every little like outlet that didn't work or anything like that. We'd be here all night. So the intent of the feasibility study was to provide a comprehensive guide for the long-term capital planning of the Bugbee Senior Center facility. And we began by assessing the building and grounds and developed plans highlighting deficiencies. So if you could bring up the plans and look at, it's called sheet SD1. We took and evaluated, and then we put the deficiencies on the plan so you could visually see where those things were inadequate.
Right, so I'm going to the actual. Like,
Yeah, and I'll just keep talking when you can pull them up. And then if you skip to SD3, one is a site plan, so it looks at the grounds, and then the second one looks at the floor plan and the building to see what was on there. And if you have those in front of you, you can look at them at home.
Okay.
or there. And in consideration of the known problems, we have generated a program document and schematic floor plans and site plan options that address those known deficiencies, while prioritizing these 3 main areas. Accessibility, which means making the space fully compliant with the American with Disabilities Act, or the ADA standards, across the building and grounds, with attention to universal design for aging. The second one, modernizing the mechanical systems, improving the building efficiency, and decommissioning the old equipment. Basically, the equipment in the building was at the end of its useful life, with the exception of the heat pumps, which were added about 5 years ago or so. So all the other energy efficiency measures have not been implemented yet, with the exception of the heat pumps. And number 3, reconfiguring the building and site to better reflect today's uses. So the last option, option D, was done by Doug Gallo with a clear eye for the future of the building, and looking at the programming with Mark, and going through a lengthy process to see what spaces would fit and what we need for expansion to accommodate the program. In addition to the drawings, written assessments were developed that identify problems and deficiencies and analyze their causes, implications and recommendations for solutions. However, the primary intent of the study is to provide a comprehensive review of the building and site, with an eye to identifying significant deficiencies that would impact the course of and the budget for the renovation. So step 4, we're really getting into the design options now. So you can kind of read what the deficiencies were, and then we're on to SD4, which is option A, we're calling. So this is the budget conscious approach. So we're doing enough to improve the energy efficiency, which is listed in the, there's a cost summary in green that looks like this. So it addresses those energy efficiency measures, and then it addresses all the items at A, which mostly have to do with accessibility and access to the building, to get from the parking lot into the building and around the building safely, if you have mobility issues or other issues. Could be auditory or other types of things like that. So option A, and this design option that focuses on the building infrastructure, code compliance, life safety and accessibility, the kitchen space and storage without any expansion of the building footprint. Only the areas in blue are reconfigured, along with the energy conservation measures. Then option B, we did not price this option, but this is merely a small, it's an augmentation of option A with a small augmentation in the kitchen. So there's a slight bump out that was identified. And the reason we did it in that location was because of the existing location of the exhaust hoods and existing equipment. So the only way to expand was out to the west, and you'll see that on the lower left-hand corner. And then option C, we priced as kind of the intermediate option that starts to expand the kitchen and then starts to move some of the things around on the inside. The design improves the circulation and flow for visitors, creates better options for bathroom layouts, and expansion of the dining area by creating a flexible conference space. So you see the bathrooms are moved at the top of the page where they used to be, and it now says conference room. So that would be a flexible space that could be closed off or open to have even a wider gathering spot, and the bathrooms are moved to the left on that option. And I'll now, option D, I'll introduce Doug Gallo if he's on the call, and he can walk you through that option to tell you about that process.
Great.
Can you hear me, Mark? Or,
Yeah.
sorry, can you hear me?
Yep. Yep, you got the whole board and an audience here that can hear you.
Wonderful. I can see the camera swinging around. So I was brought into the project then after the first options were done. I actually met Mark Bradley at the National Council on Aging Conference. Lifespan Design Studio is a senior center design specialist firm. I've been designing senior centers since 1985. And Mark and I met at a presentation that I did, and he said, hopefully someday we'll get you up to Vermont. Well, this is as close as I've gotten electronically, but that's just fine. So what we did with the work that Doug had done initially was to look at what the options might be, or the option might be, to really modernize the facility and look at creating an architectural program, looking at what Mark currently does at the center, what he doesn't do at the center now because of the lack of space to do so, what he wants to do in the future, and look at really modernizing the facility. As Doug said, nothing really has changed dramatically since 1980, and senior centers by functionality and operations have changed significantly since that time. So that's what we were looking at doing. If you could bring the presentation back up, if that would work, we can look at the architectural program, which is what was developed. That was developed from a survey a survey questionnaire that we had given to Mark. Yeah, if you can scroll down. Keep going. Get to the written. It's a written form.
Okay, thank you.
You're almost there.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. So what we did was we gave Mark a questionnaire, talked about the different types of activities that he wants to do in the future, what he does now, what he can't do now. And ultimately through that effort, we developed this architectural program. And this was looking at meeting his needs of activities, services, and programs, and then creating a list of rooms and spaces. As you can see, we identified those rooms and spaces by square footage as well as dimensions. We looked at each room individually to determine how big those rooms should be. And if you scroll down, you can just see there's various rooms just on and on of what we felt working with Mark were necessary spaces. We looked at office spaces, activity spaces, and ultimately we came up with a list of rooms as this is, but we also then take those rooms and we draw them, we create them graphically so we can look at furniture layouts. And if you go down a little bit further, you'll see that. Yeah, so each room was designed individually. We talked about the different activities, how many people would be involved in each activity. We created furniture layouts so that anybody coming in with a walker, wheelchair, or cane, or any type of assistive mobility device could get around the room appropriately and properly. So this became the architectural program for the building. And then what we started to look at was how the building could be expanded, renovate the inside, but also was there a need to expand? And we found that with that architectural program, the existing footprint was not large enough. There were a bunch of issues that we really felt needed to be improved. Mark really wanted the office environment improved. Right now, the office is in a situation where anybody can come and go in and out of the offices. There's no privacy. We felt that that was important to give the office staff privacy, have some sort of control of people coming and going. There is no lounge space as well within the existing building. The open dining area is really the only place where people can sit. And that's one of the things that senior centers have changed dramatically over the last probably 20 years, is creating space where people can just come and sit in a lounge area. We also heard that the kitchen was inadequately sized, as Doug mentioned before. Even looking at one of the previous less expensive options was to expand the kitchen, and then trying to create space that was appropriately sized for the various activities. And as you can see, the gray area is the footprint of the existing building, and then the areas that extend out beyond that are an addition to the building. So let me just walk you through coming into the building, the vestibule over on the right-hand side. So that gives you a drop-off area where people could be dropped off and picked up, come through the vestibule, and you enter immediately into a lounge space. So you'd have some soft seating and possibly some 2 tops and 4 tops in there. The reception desk is right there. That reception desk is also kind of the gatekeeper to the administrative suite. One of the other things that we did with this lounge was connect it to the kitchen. So there was direct connectivity to the kitchen. So possibly the lounge space could also be a cafe area where food prepared in the kitchen could also be served out into that lounge space. We've got the large multi-purpose room. There could be a door from the lounge directly into that, or just off of the main circulation spine running through the building. We've identified some additional spaces. There's a personal services room where various types of personal services, whether it's foot care or legal care, tax assistance could happen there. We've got an arts classroom on the front of the building, which we expanded the front a little bit. We couldn't expand it too far because of the property line location, but that gives us some nice opportunity for windows looking out onto the street. We've redone the bathrooms to make them far more accessible and aging friendly than they currently are. We've made them so they don't have doors, kind of like what you see at most airports these days. So you don't have to deal with door hardware and doors that are swinging come in. We've oversized the accessible handicap stall by putting a sink in there as well. So you've got some semi-private area. We've also looked at creating that stall wide enough that it exceeds the current ADA, but most states are starting to adopt a turning radius or a turning diameter that's larger than what the ADA currently requires. And so we're looking to the future to meet those future requirements. We've also got a library conference room. We've relocated the stairs to get down to the basement, which gave us the opportunity to have a nice size exercise dance studio. There'd be mirrors along one wall and all sorts of different types of exercise could go on in that studio. And then what we've also done is we've created an open area for cards and small meetings. One of the reasons we left it open was because the building needs another exit out of here from a code standpoint. So if that's an open room, we actually can allow that to be the exit way through the building. We've also provided a companion restroom, which is what we call a private restroom. We call them a companion restroom. Again, it's large enough that if somebody needs assistance, somebody could go in there and help. And then we've expanded the kitchen considerably. And that was one of the things that Mark really felt was necessary to give the kitchen staff and volunteers significant room for the drivers and so on, and also expand the kitchen itself. So that's how we looked at expanding the building, and it really addressed Mark's future needs by making the footprint larger. And I'm going to turn it back to Doug and let him talk about how this compares to the other considerations with meeting the deficiencies, and then also what we did to the site.
Yeah, so just to be really brief, we treated this kind of as a new option where it may not be exactly that footprint in the end, but this is a programming document. So it's not meant to be literally this when it's done. It's meant to say, we need that amount of square footage. And we're kind of thinking of it as a clean slate. So when you look at the cost estimates, that's what this assumption is for that option. Could it be done a different way where you renovate? Possibly, but that's another task. So we wanted to show you the breadth of options out there, kind of get your foot in the door, fix what's necessary, to sort of the Cadillac and looking toward the future, to give you a full range of options and decision of where to go next.
No, that's very helpful.
Yeah. And then there is a site plan too, but it's fine. I can just explain it. Basically, the idea is to create a sidewalk around the perimeter of it, so you can get out of your car and get to a sidewalk from any point in the sidewalk to the front door. And then there's a bus stop and bike racks and that kind of stuff, but it's very pedestrian friendly, and it has a loop design. And it's been straightened out a bit more, so there's less chaotic happening, cars getting, in the way, and there's a drop off area at the entry as well. So you have 3 lanes there.
Are there questions from the board this time? Man?
Yeah, if we went with SD8 that you have here, this is an excellent, it'd be great to have this, but the question arises as far as what is the lifespan of senior centers nationwide? I mean, this center is, it's been there a long time, and there's not been anything done to it really other than basic maintenance. So what is the actual lifespan of a center, looking at the aging demographics that we have now in particular?
Yeah, and Doug may be able to address that a little better because it's his specialty, but I would imagine you'd be in that 50-year range again, something like that. 30.
Yeah, I think that, obviously the building that you've got now is 40 years old or 45 years old. As Doug said, and Mark will, attest that it's lasted its lifespan as far as operationally and functionally. But there's no reason that the building can't be upgraded and added on to, new mechanical, electrical systems, updating the electrical systems and so on, and get another 50 years. We're finding that in most communities, when the senior center is properly designed and planned for the future, you're talking about a 40 to 50 year building. A lot of communities that choose, or don't have the funds to do a building that really meets their future needs, end up having to come back and either add on to the existing building again, or maybe even creating a satellite facility within their community. So, we're seeing communities doing it different ways, but we certainly feel that a 40 to 50 year building is certainly very, very possible within a community. And most likely you're not going to come back and do another one of these in 20 years. That's the other issue, unless Mark finds out that, that 20 years from now, this just isn't serving the needs in the community. And then maybe there would be a satellite facility that might be added to, within the community to work along with this facility.
Then to go alongside that, again, this SD8, do you have an overlay by chance of this overlaying on top of the actual geographical area that's there now? Because the actual geographical area that's there, you've got that wall that's there, and the actual amount of land that's available doesn't seem like it's a lot to work with. I'm just curious if this is going to utilize basically every bit that's there if this plan goes forward. And again, that's a long ways in the future, but
yeah, there's an SD4. It's a program site plan with
Page
this
64.
plan superimposed on it, and it shows the reason there's kind of a sawtooth on the back is because of the steep slope. So we tried not to go any more than 3 feet into that slope, because then you start to incur more costs with retaining walls.
right.
So we were sensitive to that, and we did overlay the LiDAR contours onto the site to determine that. And again, it's programmatic. It's not fully like perfect, but it gives you an idea that it can fit.
Yeah.
So it's possible. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? If you were to put yourself in the shoes of the building's owner or the users, what would be the next steps in the development of an idea to consider? So for example, would you think it would make sense for the community to decide, broadly speaking, which of these concepts makes the most sense, and then investing in further design and then thinking about refining the costs? Or would you want to explore all of these options in greater detail?
That's why I included the building history, because I think a committee would be the right way to go. If you can develop a building committee, and then they can be tasked with that, with a liaison perhaps from the select board, that could be a bridge. So you get, informed regularly about those, whatever option may be. I mean, you have the ultimate authority to decide, but that committee could be powerful in helping you make those decisions along with the community and us and Mark. So yeah, I think a committee might be the next best step, but does that make sense? I don't, Doug, what have you seen in other communities? You've done this a lot all over the country.
Yeah, that's usually what's happened is the effort that we went through with Mark. I think Mark is of the opinion that this is the program that's necessary to give him the maximum opportunities for today and tomorrow. But I think also having a committee that would be involved in making decisions, but also coming up to speed with learning about what those options are, but also understanding, we've got to look at the financial realities of this. And, we so often hear people assume that renovating a building is cheaper than a new construction. And depending on how much renovation is actually occurring and how much infrastructure is actually being improved, that's not always the case. Maybe the reality would be to look at this as an option versus what would it cost to build a new building on another piece of land within the community. If there's a piece of land that's already owned by the town, and moving forward from that to look at what those costs might be. One of the things we did talk to Mark about is that if this was to go forward, the senior center would have to leave. You know, this is not a renovation that could be done in phases and still operate the senior center. And that's something that a lot of communities don't stop to think about, is there's cost associated with moving, costs associated with running the facility outside of their regular building, and then the cost to bring them back in. And also from an operational standpoint, do they lose any momentum through that effort as well? So, you know, those are the types of considerations that most communities are looking at.
Seeing, seeing this building's primary mission is to serve our aging senior population in the town of Hartford. Has there been consideration to what other needs the building could serve outside of that main objective? I know there's other meetings that take place within the Bugbee Senior Center. And is there other non-priority time usages that the building could be used for that would help to, I guess, prod a decision towards a bigger renovation?
We're seeing in most communities that there are rental opportunities, so there is revenue opportunities potentially. You know, we would like to think that this is going to, with doing the full-blown renovation and expansion, this is going to be a very nice facility for the community at large. It'd be a nice amenity to have within the community. So one of the things we're also seeing with senior centers across the country is an increased demand, also an increased membership of how many people are coming through the doors with a new facility. So ultimately, again, funding necessary. Mark may choose that the hours of the center and the days that the center is open be expanded so that you can you know, have more people coming through the doors during what now are off hours. We're seeing a lot of centers that are open at 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning and staying open till 6 or 7, 8 o'clock at night, 7 days a week ultimately. Also, the thing that needs to be thought about with regard to who's coming to the center, most senior centers today are usually age 50 and beyond. So you're adding Gen Xers into the discussion with the other three older generations. So the opportunity for more people coming to the facility is there within the community as well.
Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm almost there.
I think that I think what Mark will tell you, that there's any number of outside groups that make use of the Bugbee Center now for
I mean,
sure.
you saw on the Conservation Commission, they've used it. I've been there for meetings. Twin Pines has used it. Like a lot of groups.
I think that's one of the things we have to look at when we look at this building, is that it's not just used for our senior citizens within the community. And that's why this building is such a great thing to have, because it fulfills its primary goal of looking after our aging population within the town of Hartford, but it serves so much more than that. So right. It's worth putting considerable thought and money into this building that serves so much more than its primary need.
We also find in most communities that once that happens, then you start realizing what else you can even do in the building. You know, there may be things that you're just not even thinking of at this point, and all of a sudden somebody knocks on the door and says to Mark, hey, we'd love to use your building for the Boy Scouts, or, you know, whatever it might be. And we even know senior centers that rent the facility to churches on a Sunday morning, and they do church services there. And, you know, so there's all sorts of things that can be done within this building beyond.
I don't have the floor, sorry, Doug. Who the board member was.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to hop in with just two thoughts that came to mind during this excellent presentation. Thank you so much for coming and sharing this information, and very exciting, much anticipated update. One, just a quick thought when you were speaking about, you know, the possibility of a retaining wall and the proximity of that. There is another engineering project that was approved as a bond by voters to reconstruct the street above the Bugbee Center, and that I believe involves building a retaining wall. So just context that that is underway and there is gonna be like a,
Is that a town project?
Yeah.
The
Okay,
gates.
yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be great to have the
Gates
engineering
fair
from
too.
them.
yeah, yeah.
I still got the floor.
Is
and
it related
Kim,
to
and
the
you can-
retaining wall?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay, and it's okay. And then the other thought, and maybe this is more of a question for you, Mark, is, you know, there's been a, the Hartford Community Coalition has been sending around a survey to get input about a possible community center and, you know, thoughts on the need for that and possible uses for that. I just was curious if you've had any collaboration with the folks who are doing that survey, because I'm wondering sort of along the lines of what Lanny has been, you know, saying, like, could a big renovation be an opportunity to perhaps rename Bugbee as still Bugbee, but just the Bugbee Center, and have it be, you know, really intentionally more multi-purpose in terms of other community uses? Because I'm not sure the feasibility of that other project gaining traction as its own building being created within the town in the near foreseeable future. So do you have any thoughts on that? Or if you wouldn't mind going to the microphone?
Yeah.
Sure, please.
Hello, just in case anybody does know me, I'm Mark. I'm the executive director at Bugbee. I haven't talked with the community coalition about it. I have talked with Scott Hausler very preliminarily about it. I'm not sure if their initiative is related. That's the same. Yeah. I don't know. What I do know is that Bugbee is probably one of the most well-used facilities in the town. We have an average of at least one outside booking per week, sometimes up to 3 per week. Some of these do happen during business hours. Many of them happen in the evening. So, you know, that need is already being met. It's not the most suitable space for every group, but no community center is going to be perfect for that. So we are in the middle of our strategic planning process. My understanding is Parks and Rec will be initiating theirs later this year. So it's kind of a good time to align and see where there might be some areas where either a second facility, you know, we are already using satellite locations for different programs or different types of partnerships. And likewise, honestly, even today, if you walk into our office and say, I need the building on this date during this time, if it's free, if it's available, like, we're like, okay, great, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, just to reply quickly, I mean, I think that could be a possible avenue to like garner support for a larger, you know, tax-based fundraising effort. If you were like really clear about working in collaboration with Scott Hausler and Hartford Community Coalition about trying to meet needs of various groups, and this is what we're already doing, and this is what we could do even more of if we had a major renovation.
oh yeah. I think just about every organization, nonprofit, municipal group has used Bugbee, so that's not going away.
Two things. One, John, prior to your time here, the town was approached by the owner of the Wilder Center about, you know, kind of giving the town first refusal on a purchase of that property. And it was, I think, you know, complicated by the fact that we had interim management and that it wasn't really a time to pursue that. I guess I'm throwing that out there for a couple reasons. Like, one, I don't know what the status is. Maybe it's been sold to someone else in the meantime. Two, it could be a potential property that the town might be ready to look at now for one reason or another. And three, like, even if it's not, could be a potential interim, you know, when you discuss the fact that there would be interruption if there is a renovation. I mean, who knows, that would probably be a year or more out. But in any case, the Wilder Center might be an interesting avenue to just explore what the options are there. And then secondly, where will the pickleball go?
If we build it big enough, we can fit it.
On the roof,
There you go.
on the roof.
Oh yeah, this is yeah. You didn't have it in your right. I still am going to. That's all I have.
So one thing I think if I can just say a couple things, and like I mentioned at the beginning, this is kind of the first step of a long process. You know, we know the Bugbee Center is very important. And we know that this is a big project, right? And so there are going to be public hearings, there are going to be meetings, like we're going to the options, figure out which one makes the most sense and solicit public input, how we're gonna pay for it, things like that. So we understand this is the start of a process. And I think it's very helpful to kind of lay out here's the basic, here's the medium option, here's the new building, right? And so what I would ask the select board to do, and it's likely to be a new select board after a town meeting day, is to, I think honestly, the idea of like a time limited sort of committee would be very helpful, just to work with everyone involved, to be available, to kind of shepherd the process. And what was nice, Mark mentioning the groups that are involved with the Bugbee Center, is that we could have a representative from the community coalition, right? A representative from this group or that group, select board, representative, members of the public at large. Like, I think that would be very helpful to kind of have an organization that can focus this, because there's a lot of questions, right? Like, what does the public want? What is the building going to look like? What option, do we want to go with? How is it going to be funded? And a lot of things like that. So, when you have these big processes, I think something like that could work with the select board, the public, you, with John, would be a good way to sort of get this started, right? Like, we're at the beginning. So, yep.
I would just say absolutely echo that the model that the committee, the swimming pool committee I think would be a good model to follow, in terms of like the committee was dedicated to a lot of public outreach and
Stakeholders.
Anyway, like, just look, and Scott Hauser was certainly very involved in that. I was on that committee, and anyway, that would be, I think, a good path to consider.
Absolutely. Any other questions of the board before we get to our break time? I mean, this has been incredibly useful and helpful just to start thinking about it. I love that there are initial sort of cost estimates, and then you sort of look, hey, it costs this much, but we're getting 50 years out of it, and we have an aging population, things like that, very, very important, a lot of interesting issues there. Brandon?
Yes, I just, of course, thank you for the presentation, and this is all very exciting. I wanted to mention that a lot of building firms, kind of the way they've been going in the last decade or so, is they love the opportunity to be involved as early as possible in the design process. And I know that kind of goes against some of the traditional ways of doing it, where you finalize a design and then you kind of send it out to bid, and whoever's the lowest bidder for that particular design, like then they sign on and build the thing you want. But being in the industry myself, the building industry, I have kind of witnessed that a lot of very talented firms can help you realize savings if they are involved earlier in the process. So I just wanted to put that out there, that hey, the town could actually end up saving money by going that route, as opposed to the traditional RFP, get them involved at the last minute.
Anything else before? Did you have a comment? I'm sorry.
It is just a comment. It didn't arise, but one thing to know
Gail, you
is
should go to
that they designed the parking lot to be safer.
Sorry, I'm gonna grab the microphone and bring it to you, Gail.
I thought it was here.
Oh, that's the video thing.
Unfortunately, that's not in the budget.
The way they designed redesigned the parking lot, the architects, it not only is safer, but there's one additional parking space, which is necessary. And I think you recognize that with the redo of the crosswalk, that now directly there is a way safely across the road to the other parking lot.
Yeah.
That's all.
Great. Anything else before we take our break? This has been a great discussion, the first of many, I would think. And we'll kind of take it from here. I do think a solid next step, if not for this board, a future board, since we're on borrowed time here. The idea of a committee identifying the stakeholders that can, I think that's a great idea with staff input, things like that. So great. Well, awesome. Thanks everyone. Thanks for the presentation. It was fantastic. And we'll take 5 and then come back and finish up the meeting.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks very much. Right. Okay, so next is Green Heights Drive Housing, review road realignment and water system improvements. Initiate Hickory Ridge realignment proceedings.
Yes, we have our friends from BlackRock here to say a few words. I don't know if Chris wants to introduce them or what they're here for.
Their presentation, I'll let them.
Okay, there you go.
My name's Steve Raymond. There's other representatives here. We've got Earl Simpson, Adam Morse. I believe there's several on Zoom, maybe Erwin Perret. The drafter of the letter that you have that lays out that the agreements plus the exhibits to that agreement. So kind of high level where we are. We're back before the select board in July of 2024. The project received zoning approval from the ZBA and the Planning Commission. The project itself is kind of two projects. There's on the upper lot, so to speak, there's 192 units. On the lower lot, there's 48 unit affordable housing project. The aspects before you, conditions of those approvals were to do really two things. One, to develop agreements that would specify the development of that new private drive, that Green Heights Drive, cost sharing. As we'll talk, there's some realignment of the public road, easements that are being conveyed back and forth to kind of accomplish that development. And then there's also a water line that's needed for that upper lot because of the elevation change, which I think this was all kind of presented to you. So since that meeting back in July, myself, the town's attorney, town staff have worked on putting together these two agreements. So one is referred to as the kind of the road realignment agreement. That's exhibit 1 to the letter. The other is the water system agreement. That's exhibit 2. To take the road realignment first is the project plans. There's an exhibit A to that agreement. That's kind of the overall site plan. You'll see there's the road, the Green Heights Drive, that connects to Sykes Mountain Drive, and that connects essentially where Hickory Ridge used to connect into Sykes Mountain. And so Green Heights Drive is going to be a private drive, but it's going to kind of replace that portion of Hickory Ridge. So in order to do that, there'll need to be a realignment or discontinuance of a small portion of Hickory Ridge Road, which is a public road. There's also a truck turnaround and various infrastructure at that intersection, that new intersection. In addition to the agreement specifies how the developer, BlackRock, will develop the infrastructure. It'll be approved by the town, and then there'll be various easements conveyed because some of that infrastructure is going to be on BlackRock's property, the developer's property, and the town will have an easement. BlackRock will also need an easement on town property to locate that small section of Green Heights Drive. It's connected to that as part of this hearing. Because it's a public road, because Hickory Ridge is a public road, there needs to be a formal process started to realign or discontinue that portion. And that's the select board has that authority, kind of laid out in the letter. It's this set time and a hearing, at least 30 days notice, to examine the road and then hold a hearing on the realignment and discontinuance. So that's the road realignment agreement.
Okay.
And feel free to stop me, but I'll kind of give you the high level and then I'll stop for questions. And then the water system agreement, exhibit 2, is, as at that July 2024 meeting, there was some discussion about how costs were going to be shared, whose responsibility was what. And so this agreement goes through that and specifies that, again, the developer will construct the water system agreement. And specifically, there's a pump station that is part of that. Once it's constructed, it'll be conveyed to the town. If the town reviews and determines that it was constructed according to state approvals, then it'll be conveyed to the town ownership. And this is part of the public water system permit that the state has issued, a requirement of that. And then there's several cost measures where the town will invoice the developer for its maintenance costs. There's also a provision that provides for the developer to pay into essentially an escrow account to cover the cost of the capital replacement costs at the end of its useful life. And so that's all specified in the agreement. It gives some flexibility for the town, how they want to, whether they want to incur the cost themselves or whether they want to hire a third party to manage the pump station. And so that's been developed and those set forth in that. There's also, the plans are an attachment to that agreement. We can talk in more detail if there's specific questions, but from a high level, that's where we are. So I think, kind of in summary, what we're looking at from the select board is, one, we want to present those agreements because now that we've gone and formalized them, and also to get the select board to approve to the extent that they can, understanding there's going to be further action needed on the road realignment agreement. But ideally, that would be something that the select board could initiate those proceedings tonight or soon hereafter. And at the outcome of those proceedings, then the agreements could be fully executed and the project could be carried forward.
Great. Questions? Kim?
Thank you for that. I followed most of this through the planning commission, so this all makes sense. And I guess my question would be for Brian and Chris, like the water agreement is all, are you fully satisfied with all the terms within there in terms of the maintenance and the?
Yeah, I mean, we have vetted it. The attorneys have vetted it. There's enough safeguards. The whole agreement, the purpose of it was to protect the ratepayers of additional costs beyond a normal extension of our system. So it's a little bit creative and it allows us to employ a third-party company to maintain the system, which we have interest in given the current stance of trying to find qualified operators. This gives us another avenue to look into, and it may be something we utilize for more than just this in the future.
Other questions?
What is I guess, the action you would like tonight is for us to authorize, like we got kind of a potential motion. Is that something you would like to entertain?
Yeah, Chris provided potential motions 1, 2, and 3, depending on how far you want to go with the process.
I don't know why it numbered it, because when I emailed it to you, it didn't number it.
Oh, mine's not numbered. I'm showing just
Okay.
3. So.
Mine read 1, 1, 1.
Yeah, when it came
numbers.
back to me, it was numbered, and I don't know why.
Okay.
So you all have that. The first 2 paragraphs are the first motion, and the first motion is basically authorizing the town manager to initiate the discontinuance and the realignment, as well as to give notice to the planning commission and the affected landowners, etc. The second one that's down below is whether or not you feel comfortable enough is to give the permission to execute the agreements upon successful completion of the discontinuance process and realignment process. And that would also be subject to us at the same time as that was successful. We would receive the easement from them for our public access, our access to the property. They will also get an easement
This was
from
an
us. But
email that came. It was in response to my question. So the email, it's questions for February 18th select board meeting, and then it's the 3rd attachment.
I'm all for expediting things. I just want to get a sense from other board members, I think, about whether this in particular was like sufficiently warned to the public, because this is like an attachment to an email that we got like this afternoon.
That's the motion specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, the agenda packet has the actual agreements in it,
Mhm.
so it didn't have, I mean, I don't,
Well, it had a link to another packet,
yeah.
subsequent packet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the phrasing of the item itself calls for a review of road realignment and water system agreements and initiate the Hickory Ridge Road realignment proceedings.
Yeah, initiate. Proceedings.
So
And I'm
in the
comfortable with that.
attorney's letter to you, he has on the third page, and he can state it, is action sought at February 18th, 2025 meeting, where they are seeking you to initiate the road action, initiate the process. So when you initiate the process, the public and the affected landowners and anyone who has a stake in Hickory Ridge is going to receive a certified mail notice. So this is, you are just beginning the process, but you have to initiate it. And this, the article or the recommendation I made is just a way to take it off your personal hands and delegate it to the town manager to follow through and initiate the process, and how he delegates it from there is up to him.
I'm just gonna highlight that, like, throughout the planning commission process, like, I think all of the abutters, like, this is not gonna be a surprise to them particularly, like, it, you know, the general public also, it's been a pretty active part of the planning commission for like the last 2 years, maybe, at least more than a year, probably.
Our packet does, I see that the action sought.
Yeah.
So, yes, so has there been concern from abutters in particular about the road realignment aspect of it?
Lori might be able to speak to it more than me, but the whole action of realigning and dead end and Hickory Ridge was in response to concerns. It was to appease them to make sure the traffic from the development for this infill development did not spill into the existing neighborhood.
Exactly, like it was basically like, I don't want to say the idea of, but it was to the benefit of the neighboring.
So I'm just looking to address Brandon's concerns about people being notified of this hearing adequately and the vote adequately. That's why I'm asking if the butters that had complaints now received enough notice on this to be able to be here. And it sounds like yes.
So there will be a process to this that will seek for them to comment. Like what you're doing now does not approve the road realignment or the termination. You are just initiating the process to hear it before the public and notify all of the people affected by it. So you will be at a meeting in, well, it'll be over 30 days from now, hearing from them if they are concerned.
Okay.
Other questions, or I'll take a motion.
I'm happy to make a motion.
You go ahead.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay, Mr. Chair, I move that in accordance with 19 VSA section 708, the select board authorizes the town manager to initiate the process of formally discontinuing and realigning a southerly portion of Hickory Ridge Road and realigning it by publicly warning and notifying affected persons owning or interested in lands through which the highway may pass or abut, of the time when they will inspect the site and receive testimony at least 30 days in advance via certified mail for 19 VSA section 709. And further, we authorize the town manager to give notice to the planning commission, post a copy of the notice in the office of the town clerk, and cause a notice to be published in a local newspaper of general circulation in the area not less than 10 days before the time set for the hearing.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the
A
motion.
second from Mary. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And there's one more.
Oh, yeah. The second motion, Mr. Chair, I move that the select board authorize the town manager to execute the road realignment agreement and the water system agreement for the Black Rock Investments LLC development conditioned to the successful outcome of the discontinuance and realignment proceedings for the southerly end of Hickory Ridge and receipt of a water line, public access, vehicle turnaround, and emergency and municipal services easement deed from Blackbrook Investments LLC.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second, Brandon, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks very much. All right, our next item, sort of an overview of a multifamily housing project. The idea that Vermont Community Development Program we could apply for a grant.
Oh, Heidi has her hand up.
Okay, Heidi.
Sorry, go ahead, Heidi. I did not see your hand earlier.
I appreciate you allowing me to speak. This is Heidi Duto, White River Junction, Vermont. This was a question in regards to the Black Rock construction. I may have missed it when I was not attending a planning board meeting. Has any of the town officials considered, if we have a power outage, how a water pump is going to pump water up to the upper apartment buildings, and especially in case of an emergency fire during a power outage?
Chris?
There will be an emergency standby generator at the facility.
Did you hear that, Heidi?
Yes, thank you. My other question is I imagine the rerouting of the road has nothing to do with Sykes Mountain Ave directly, but in a planning board meeting last year, I believe it was, Dylan Bianchi, sitting on the planning board, works at Toyota, and he had brought up concerns when the individuals owning the Indian restaurant wanted to, one, move out of their property and only have it as a business, and also have a turnaround drive-through through their yard for their business. And he was concerned with congestion on Sykes Mountain Ave. Will there be consideration, or is there plans to put traffic lighting in if you're adding in almost, what, 350 extra units?
Anyone have any answer?
You
I mean,
can
I remember that,
take that.
and the restaurant you're speaking of did change their pattern in their parking lot, like you now enter on the other side.
Right.
And I think that was a result of that. I definitely, there are, Lori wants to speak to it.
There were traffic analyses that were done as part of the overall review of the project. But just as a point of information, traffic circles actually can facilitate a much higher volume of traffic flow than lights can. So I think, and all of the analysis was based on the existing configuration of Sykes Mountain Avenue, which has a much higher capacity with the rotaries and the roundabout than the current traffic patterns on the road.
So Lori, if I may, is there plans for a roundabout at the entranceway of the road?
No, what I'm explaining is that the existing systems that are there will be adequate to handle the anticipated volumes.
But I'm concerned with people on the road, on Sykes Mountain Road, and then people trying to come off of that property. I mean, you're adding in minimally probably 300 plus vehicles a day in and out, maybe multiple times a day. And that would cause major congestion in the area, I would believe. Especially when there was concerns of a tiny little Indian restaurant having their drive-through of their business changed.
Heidi, it might be helpful if we can maybe have some additional information transpire from our office to you so that you could look at the traffic analysis that were done. I don't know if one of the engineers wants to speak to that more specifically here.
It was discussed
But
earlier.
it's already, yeah, so.
No, I know, but my concern is right now you don't have those extra 300 plus vehicles a day, maybe multiple times a day coming and going, but in the future you will. And I'm just wondering if there's planning in place to adequately accommodate all of the upcoming forecasted traffic off of those apartment buildings.
Lori, was that the subject of the traffic study you're talking about?
Yes, that is the
Okay.
subject of the
Can we
traffic study.
get
Yes, it was
Heidi a
done.
copy of that?
I can certainly make that available to her next week.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi. All right, our next item, some information about proposed development at 444 Sykes Mountain Avenue. Action item for the select board, if there is one, is to schedule a public hearing March 18th as part of a grant process for a grant application. Something the new select board will be scheduled, but we'll just get an overview of the project. So I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you so much. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew Winter, and I'm Executive Director at Twin Pines Housing Trust. Kim, I did send out a PDF. I don't know if you want to pull that PDF and I can kind of go through the process. Lori, did you want to introduce the project and the request here?
I do want to just give a couple overview of it. It is a type of project that is going through federal funding through the state of Vermont, the Vermont Community Development Block Grant Program. And that is a HUD, primarily funded through HUD funds, and they must go through a municipality. That's why it's coming to you, even though a subrecipient may be at the end of this in terms of the implementation. So I just wanted to make that distinction as to why it's coming before you for action. This is a preliminary discussion at the end of this evening, or at the end of the presentation. There may be some questions that you have, but really it is about whether or not the board feels that it warrants further consideration. Similar to what you just heard from Chris and Public Works Director, is that this is the very similar thing. It's not where you're making the decision whether or not this should be done. It's whether or not you will hold a public hearing in order to hear the public's comments on whether or not this is something you would want to pursue with a grant application. And on that, I'll turn it back over to Andrew.
Great, thank you. And thank you for pulling this up. Right here on the front is Wentworth Community Housing, which is off of Sykes Mountain Avenue. That was a project that was funded through the same program, a Community Development Block Grant Program, through the Vermont Community Development Program. Again, these are, as Lori indicated, these are federal funds that are then flowing through the state. Municipalities have to apply. No matching funds are required. And importantly, all administrative costs related to this particular grant that might be incurred by the town are compensated for from the grant. So there's no additional cost to the town. You've heard a little bit about this project today earlier. 444 Sykes Mountain Avenue is the parcel at the front of the site. It has been, currently, the zoning works for 48 units. And site plan has been approved by the Planning Commission. And we are in the process of looking at making some small tweaks to that plan in terms of the building footprint. That's a process that we'll be working through with the Planning Commission in the coming months. We, as mentioned, are requesting Select Board to approve applying for the HUD CDBG grant. And that is a competitive process. This is one of several projects that we've have utilized community development block grant funding through the town. And in this particular one, Twin Pines and Evernorth will be co-developers. Evernorth is a nonprofit out of Burlington and has worked with us on a number of projects before. The two entities will develop the housing, will own a partnership that basically all the tax credits that we're going to be using, the grant funds that we're going to be obtaining, including the community development block grant funds, will flow to. And as mentioned, it's similar to other projects that we've done. Wentworth, we applied to Riverwalk, the new building across the way over here. We didn't ultimately proceed with CDBG at that point because there was other funding available to us. And then a number of years ago, we did a project called Hartford Scattered Sites, which included some buildings on South Main Street, as well as property out in Queechee, and a couple of properties on Christian Street. So a little bit of project overview. If we could move forward, I will keep going. So a little bit about Twin Pines for those of you who may not know about us. Founded in 1990, so we're celebrating our 35th this year. Staff of 30, we have 665 rental units. And we kind of do a range of housing. So we'll do housing for homeless, we'll do housing for veterans, we'll do housing for seniors, and just a whole range of housing, as well as housing units for workforce housing, which is what this is intended. So again, mentioned that we have worked with Evernorth before. They worked with us on the Hartford Scatter Site project, as well as Wentworth and Riverwalk. They provide additional development capacity. Here with us today is their project manager, Matt Moore, and they give us some financing expertise and help us with access to capital. So they're an important part of our team, which includes not just our project management staff, but we've got additional project management staff to help make something like this happen. So recent collaboration, I mentioned Riverwalk right across the way here. That was a building that we just finished, turnkey development with 42 units. And again, similar to the kind of building that we would be looking at 444 Sykes Mountain Avenue, mix of studios, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom apartments. This opened in June and is fully leased up. We're also busy doing projects elsewhere. While we love doing projects in Hartford, we're busy doing projects in Woodstock, which is a project here in the upper photo, and then we're trying to work with the folks down in New London to develop 60 units of workforce housing there. So those are just a couple of projects we're doing in other communities around the region. So a little bit about 444 Sykes Mountain Avenue. So master plan shown here. The buildings in the upper portion are those that will be owned by BlackRock, 194 units. And then along Sykes Mountain Avenue will be the building that Twin Pines and Evernorth will own, with 48 units there. The two projects are interdependent. The fact that we've got the affordable units is helping to enable the 194 units adjacent. So again, they're all kind of moving forward in process, but the folks here from BlackRock are the master developers in terms of the process that you've been working through today: water, driveway, sewer connections, and the like. So what we're proposing will be a 4-story mixed income residential building with an elevator, similar again to what we did over at Riverwalk, with a mix of studios, 1s, 2s, and 3 bedroom units. Currently, we're looking at units that would serve a range of incomes, and then parking, community amenities, including community room, laundry, storage, and outdoor space. Just to kind of give you a sense of the income range that we're talking about here. The goal is to try to have some units serving folks at 80 to 100% of what we call the area median income. This isn't the average, this is sort of the midpoint. 50% of folks make less, 50% make more. What is nice about what we did over at Riverwalk is we were able to do some higher income households who may not be able to access market rate housing at current prices. Newer units often cost $2,000, $2,500 a month. And whereas somebody with an income, a family of 4 making 80 to 100,000 is able to get into a unit over at Riverwalk for more like $1,500 a month. So it's a big savings to a family, and looking to find an affordable option here in Hartford. So our request today is to allow for the scheduling of a hearing next month on, I think March 18th is what we were hoping for, that would allow for an application to be submitted to the Vermont Community Development Program on April 8th when applications are due. So with that, I think that's my last slide, and I'm happy to.
Just your partner.
There we go. I've got some other financing sources just to kind of give you a little bit more background. We use low-income housing tax credits. Those are federal tax credits. We are also, we have applications pending for state and federal grants through the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. Affordable housing sounds really simple, but as you go through it, you realize just how many different buckets of money we require. And obviously the CDBG funding is an important piece as well. So with that, I think I'm ready for questions.
Great questions. Mary.
I have a question, and maybe I'm naive, or maybe there's an elephant in the room, but I'm always concerned about federal grants that are now being demolished. So, I mean, is it because it goes through the state that this is still, you're feeling comfortable that these grants will?
Yeah, so great question. We're hearing, rumblings that things may be coming for different departments at the federal level. We have most, for instance, our project in Woodstock, we have most of the grants have been allocated to the state. And so we're competing for grants that have already been received by the state of Vermont. So absent the federal government coming back in and grabbing those dollars back from the state, which is possible. But I think probably more unlikely than other scenarios. That remains a possibility. But at this point, the funding that we're going after has already been allocated to the state, so those dollars are available. And so, fingers crossed, we get everything funded this year and allow us to move into construction next year. Beyond that, I don't really want to venture a guess.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Wait.
Yeah, with Twin Pines being associated with these properties and other properties from the town of Hartford, and being a nonprofit status, where does this fall in the realms of property taxes?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I just asked our staff to give me the latest numbers. So we have at this point, with the units that we've finished in the last year, we had 275 units in the town of Hartford, and we paid $336,000 last year in property taxes. So although Twin Pines is a nonprofit, all of the properties that we're developing, those are taxable entities, and there is a state statute that governs how they're appraised and what we do in terms of taxation. But we are a significant taxpayer in the town.
So the taxes on this, because you are a nonprofit, are not at the full rate that a for-profit organization will be taxed at.
So the entities that own the project, because we're getting federal tax credits, has to be a taxable entity. And so we're a nonprofit, but we're creating taxable entities that are going to undertake and own the housing that is being produced. And those will be paying property taxes pursuant to a state statute. Every state in the country has a state statute that governs how these types of federal tax credit projects are taxed, precisely for that reason. It's slightly lower than if it were a multifamily, but we're charging people a rent that is significantly below market rate.
So by BlackRock associating themselves with a development that falls under Twin Pines, they're getting significant value out of this because the non-taxable aspect of the project to start with, such as the roads and the infrastructure build out.
So I'm happy to have these guys answer that question, but I will say totally separate. So they're going to be taxed as a market rate development, and we're being taxed as an affordable low-income housing tax credit project. So they are separate and distinct, but I'm happy to, Peter, I don't know if you
The build out though is what, because you're utilizing a considerable amount of the build out that BlackRock is using, so.
The 192 units on the.
Could you go up to?
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you.
The 192 units that's market rate. That's a separate entity that'll be taxed normal. Not what the tax rate that Andrew was talking about, which is my understanding is it's not that it's not a huge savings from the taxable entity itself. The other factor to think about is that this kind of partnership is largely what's enabling this development to go forward. Just because of the logistics of it all and the permitting, that to be able to partner with an affordable housing component allows this to be feasible.
But the units that BlackRock puts in, they'll be
tax normal. Yeah.
But will they be? What is the? I guess the market for the units of BlackRock, is it workforce housing or is it low income housing or what is the?
They'll be market rate, so it'll be just subject to whoever's wanting to lease them. There isn't going to be, and I don't want to speak for Andrew, but in state statute to qualify as affordable housing, there's certain income restrictions that they need to meet. Those restrictions are not imposed on BlackRock because it's market rate. It's a private development. It's like if anyone put up had a house and wanted to rent it, they could.
Yeah, I just see it's really advantageous to have this go before us so that BlackRock can utilize.
But BlackRock's not utilizing any of these grants. It's none of them.
I understand. No, I understand. Okay, thank you.
Jim?
Can I mean, just correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is BlackRock purchased this whole property, did the site plan for the two developments. Twin Pines and Evernorth are essentially purchasing the project, the lower portion, the income sensitive portion from BlackRock. So it'll be your entity with a slightly preferable tax benefit. And then the upper level, I mean, the only thing I do not love about this project is it is a little segregated, but that's been discussed already. Anyway, is that a fair assessment of what the process has been?
That is a fair assessment.
Okay, so but it'll be basically separate properties.
No, I know, but what my concern is, what is the infrastructure aspect of it is going to be put under the phase of what Twin Pines is involved in? The road work, the whole road work is going to be part of it.
That's just BlackRock.
So you will only put up the road work to meet this establishment, is that?
So what we're relying on BlackRock to undertake is, and what we are essentially buying from them is a permitted project and with water and sewer connections and a roadway that serves it, so that we don't have to undertake that work as part of it. We're essentially buying the work that they've done to serve that project, to serve our project that we're buying, as well as their own project. Is that a fair statement?
Okay, that helps to sort things out a little bit.
Yeah. Great, thank
Other
you.
board questions for Andrew or Peter?
Sure, just a simple question. Thanks, Andrew. Just wondering, for my own curiosity, as much as anything, what kind of build costs you're seeing for 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom units?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is one where we are seeing numbers that are a little bit higher than what we did over at Riverwalk last year, but still within what I would consider a favorable price range. The costs have gone up. We're looking at $265, $270 a square foot, when we used to be like, okay, we can do this for $150, $175. Those numbers are in our rearview mirror. But again, in the multifamily housing space, and particularly in affordable, the units are very nice. They're comfortable, they're energy efficient, but we're not putting in granite countertops. We're not putting in a whole bunch of things that would significantly raise the cost. So in a single family home that somebody might be building, they could spend $350, $400 a square foot. We're still in the twos.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for the presentation. I think, this might be a relatively naive question because I'm not so much in the weeds with the planning commission, the zoning board, but I'm a member of the community and I know that housing, there's not enough housing to meet the demand, and I know that Twin Pines, your organization, when there is development happening, you're involved, and so I'm just sort of like, I don't know, just curious, or perhaps the other members of the public would be interested to just hear a little bit more of what your successes are in that realm. Because I think when I'm just as like a layperson, when I ask about this topic, it seems like cost of development is one of like the tightest parts of the bottleneck. And you're, as you know, a nonprofit, obviously you're creative in finding lots of different grant sources and building partnerships, and you've been in this community for 35 years. So I'm imagining those are all the factors that make you able to do this type of development. So if you have any reflection to share with the public on that. And then part two would just be like, how did this partnership specifically originate? Because it seems to be like it's working out and the community will benefit from both developments.
Yeah, well, let me start with the second question. And I'll let Earl feel free to jump in at any point if I stray from his recollection. But this project is very much following up on a successful relationship around the Wentworth project. So just down the street, around the corner, we did 30 units, then a second phase with 17 units, 47 total units in 2 phases. That was property that the Simpson development had been looking at and had been working at. So they worked with us on that acquisition. And so there's a little bit of a track record between the 2 organizations in terms of development. And then when BlackRock started talking about developing this site with 242 units, they did come to us and with the interest of having us undertake the affordable piece. So again, we've got some history and we have a track record of completing some projects. So that's essentially how it came. Happy to, at any point talk about housing. I'll talk about housing and housing policy all the time. I think the big drivers are availability of labor, cost of construction materials. Right now, those have been going up. I expect many of those materials to continue to rise as we grapple with tariffs and other market issues. But we're finding ways to be creative to move some projects forward. Permitting also has always been an issue, and again, the state and communities like Hartford have really been drilling into what they can do to try to address barriers to housing while making sure that people are doing a good job building quality projects. So always happy to talk further about that. And I know it's a late time, so I'm happy to leave it there if that's okay for now. And thank you for the willingness to listen to my presentation and your willingness to hopefully schedule a hearing next month. And we can go into more details with you and the new select board members.
Any further questions from the board? Anyone online?
One hand up online.
Okay, let's hear from the online caller.
Go ahead, Heidi.
Thank you again, Kim. I guess I'm a bit confused with your follow-up, Kim, about BlackRock building the building. I don't know if it was from the get-go that Twin Pines was going to be purchasing or being a part of the lower building of 40+ units at affordable rates. I guess I'm a little bit confused why they're looking for grant money to proceed. If someone could please clarify for me.
I mean, I think it was to make the rent cheaper, basically.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you think about your own home, if you borrow 80% of your home purchase from the bank, you have to pay that bank back. And what we're able to do by accessing low-income housing tax credits, which we sell to raise equity, and by going after grant funds, we're able to reduce the amount of debt that we take down to something more like 10 or 15%. And in doing that, we agree to take on the ability to, or the obligation to rent the property and units to income sensitive, folks to basically limit the rents that we charge and lease units to folks within certain income bands, trying to serve low and moderate income households. So essentially, the grants allow us to do that, because otherwise we'd have to borrow money, which would raise the cost and the rent and require us to charge more.
So if I may, you're applying for grant money. You're saying that you want to lower your debt ceiling to keep rent down to a minimum. Just for examples, what is the going rate of rent at the Fairmont? Because I believe, didn't you do the same up there?
Yes, we did. And it's the rents there are, gosh, I think it's about $1,000 a month for a 1-bedroom. And that includes heat and hot water, all utilities, electric and the like. So, you know, again, that you know, is a rent that is below market right now in the Upper Valley.
So I'm hearing through people talking in town that the rent up there is $2,100 a month.
It's a little off topic, Heidi, I think.
No, I'm just curious, Mike. I mean, I think people have a right to know what is and what isn't happening. And if we don't have these answers, how do we move forward?
So the short answer is that's incorrect. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, future board can decide to schedule the public hearing. So we'll move on to the certificate of highway.
Will there be more discussion on this, Mike, please?
Yes, there's going to be a public hearing on this project. That's what we're about to talk about.
Duly noted.
So the hope, Mr. Chairman, was that we could, if you would be willing to entertain a vote today to schedule that hearing on March 18th. I know it's the new board will be in place at that point, but
I'll just make the caveat: the new board and their new leadership, new
So-
chair, new vice chair can cancel it. But if we want to bind the future select board, we can. So I'll take a motion to hold a public hearing on that date.
Well,
Someone would like to make them.
it's just a clarifying is that we have a certain amount of days that it has to be advertised in order to meet
Sure.
that statutory requirement. And them to be able to take advantage of the application cycle on April 8th, we would have to have that motion from you that we would go forward with the advertising now so that we can meet the required dates that it has
Sure,
to be
I'm fine
advertised.
with that.
Okay, I just want to make sure
point
that
out
that
the
was.
reality of future board can do it once. I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the select board hold a public hearing on March 18, 2025 to determine if the town should submit a VCDP application for the proposed Sykes Mountain Avenue multifamily housing project.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Ida. Any discussion?
And so the idea would be during the select board meeting on that date, the public hearing.
It would actually be prior to that, and we would have to advertise it, and it would start, you would have a separate public hearing at the beginning, and then you would go into your regular scheduled meeting, and then you would discuss the items if you wanted to go further.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item. Thank you for coming
Thank
in.
you.
Very
Thank you.
informative. Recertification of V-Trans highway mileage. We got Brian for that.
This should be hopefully quick. So we did it last month, and then I got an email last week that they had miscalculated. If you go up here, they took out the turn lane, they put the pedestrian thing in there. So we're going from 0.036 to 0.060 now in decrease in class 2 roads. That's all that this is all about.
Okay, questions, Brian? Brandon?
Was it correct that the difference is something like $111?
That's what I come out to, yeah. So, yeah, I just wanted to show you the difference between the two there and what it comes out to be. So where's the motion for this?
Page 80.
Page 80. Anyone want to make a motion? Mary?
I move that the select board recertify the 2025 highway mileage certification as presented.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
From Ida. Discussion. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Easiest one tonight. Thank you.
And if you haven't squeezed your tiny signature onto the form, it's over here.
We'll do it again.
All right, and we've got John, once again, we've heard about
Yes.
this, question for the Liaison at State Ethics Commission.
Yes.
Designated ethics complaint recipient.
Yes, we have, as you know, adopted an ordinance, or the board has. And the law that applies to all municipalities in Vermont also requires us, or the town, to designate a state ethics liaison and a complaint recipient. And the because of the section 4D in the new ordinance, that suggests that any ethics complaints against the designated recipient must be directed to the town, to the municipal manager. It requires that some other person than the town manager be designated the complaint recipient. So there's no problem in terms of appointing the town manager as the liaison to the State Ethics Commission, but the town manager cannot serve also as the complaint recipient. And in an alternative, I have proposed that the select board chair be so designated, with the option of the chair, if he or she wishes or needs to delegate some or all of that responsibility to the HR director.
Questions for John?
How time sensitive is this?
Good question. I don't know that there's ethics police that are going to haul us away for failure to be more timely about it. But what is it that you want additional time for?
We've got election coming up. So I just, as Mike stated, I mean, we're putting things on the next board, and I'm just wondering if we could wait this out until our election, and perhaps we could designate this at our organizational meeting, because the makeup of this board may be extremely different than what you see.
Sure.
At,
what about the appetite to at least designate a liaison, which could be the town manager if you wanted, which would not involve any burdening of the new select board. If you want to do that, you certainly can proceed to that.
Yeah, I agree. I just, like I say, we're so close to election time.
Sure.
Things will change. You know?
I'll take a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Would you make the motion?
Appoint the town manager
to be the State Ethics Commission liaison.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second the motion.
Second from Mary. Any discussion? Yeah, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right.
So we're tabling.
We're tabling the second
Yeah,
item,
the
yes.
second part. Okay, commission reports. Kim,
Nothing.
Brandon.
There was a continued discussion at the Housing and Homelessness Committee. The committee is imminently going to submit to the board a survey of rental property in the town.
Explain that.
If the board members would like additional information, I'm happy to discuss more out of band here, but we also heard about it from the presentation from John Hafner, the chair of the Housing Committee.
What is it meant by the survey, though? I'm not sure if I.
It's an attempt to develop a I don't know what they're calling it now. It's on the third name, but just basically information gathering about rental housing in the town of Hartford. It's the state of it.
Inventory.
Inventory. Maybe that's where they landed.
Okay, thanks very much. Mary?
Nope.
Aye?
No.
Okay.
No.
Don't have anything, so we'll move to the consent agenda. Take a motion.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Make a motion, we approve the payroll ending 2/15/2025, approve AP manifest of 2/14/2025 and 2/20/2025. Approve minutes of meetings of 2/4/2025. Future meetings approved 2024-25, budget and candidates night 2/25, 2/25, 3/1/2025, town and school district meeting, 3/6/2025 organizational meeting, 2025.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
What did I mess up?
Nope, you didn't mess anything up. I'm going to just suggest that we make it clear that the minutes that you're approving for February 4th include the regular select board meeting, but also the health board meeting that preceded it.
Accepted.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
We did.
I seconded.
Okay, Kim, seconded, so any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
A second from Mary.
Kim.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You're adjourned.
Excuse me.